This is the second part in the series of tutorials for building the target app. This is also the second one, and we're still in stage one. On the first part, we stopped at step 16, or in the middle of step 16, and it was once we made the wall a prefab and we changed the name of the instance, the only instance we got right now, to wall front, adds the other three walls to the room. We can do it by two ways: either edit duplicate on the one we got, or dragging more instances of the prefab. I find that when you drag instances of the prefab into the room, they tend to get those weird numbers, you see, like, I don't know where they came from. So I'm going to do it the other way, but, feel free to do it either way, either by dragging prefabs from a prefabs folder to the hierarchy, or taking the one you got in the hierarchy and duplicate. Either one will achieve the same purpose. So duplicate once, duplicate twice, duplicate three times, and we got four of them right now. Their names are going to be front, which is the one we got, then wall left, wall right, wall back. Left. Right. And back. We will discuss in a second, why do we even need a back wall? We're never going to see it, but we're going to discuss that. We do need it. And then it's their parameters. Of course, right now they are all exactly in the same spot because they are duplicates of each other. But now we're going to give them, each one of their own numbers. Let's start with wall left. It's going to be -20 on the going on the X, -8.1. Like this, and the main change it's going to have is that on the Y is going to be 90 degrees rotated, which is going to place it. See how it's like the left wall, and I already can see it in my camera as my left wall. And yeah, there's plenty of like overlap between them, which is fine. The room is going to be created right here. The right wall is going to have very similar settings, only instead of -20, it's going to be 20. Because it's moved to the right, -8.1 on the Z, and 90. Notice we're not even changing the scale of any one of them because they're the same size wall, only placed in a different place. And the back wall is going to be very similar to the front wall, except its Z is going to be -20. It's going to be moved back. Instead of Z 10 meters in front of the camera, it's going to be -20 meters behind the camera, and we got our wall. This is what your game window should look like. A little bit of the left wall, a little bit of the right wall, a lot of the front wall, and a floor. The lighting is going to change. Speaking of lighting, step 17. If it looks right, and of course, what I would recommend is like pausing the video and going, doing this while reading the instructions. We're going to start taking care of the lighting, even though it's just, like a work light. We're going to turn off the direction light. I can delete it, but it's, maybe if I want to bring it back, I'll turn it off. Things should get darker. And we're going to create a point light and give it to these parameters. It's going to be temporary. It's going to later on move it into its own container. But for right now, just so we can see what we're doing, not as a child of anything. So somewhere around here, light, point light, and it's going to be -4. Let me first of all reset it. It's going to be Z -4. It's going to be range 20. All those things are, just so I can see what I'm doing. And I'm going to also change its render mode to important. So it's always rendering whether the camera is looking at it or not. And by now, the project from above should look something like this. Now, you might say, hey, why does this look, different and this looks a little lit? It's because there are several ways of looking at your scene window, and I can look at it as wireframe or more detailed or rendered like that or with lighting. And this is easier to look at, while the actual look is going to be much darker. So this is just for convenience, like what's convenient for you to look at while you're building it, like, the builder's view. Next, that was step number 18. In the scene hierarchy, but not as a child of any object, we're going to create an empty object and we're going to call it launcher. This is going to be an empty game object where the missile or the bullet we're going to shoot is going to be, this is going to be its coordinates. So these are going to be very important coordinates. So not as a child of anything, empty game object, launcher. I'm using, capital L, but in this case, it's not case sensitive. What is important is that I give it the exact position, which is everything is reset except Y 1.7 and Z negative 9.4. 1.7 negative 9.4. Let me explain the logic here. Look at where the camera is. If I zoom in, see where the camera is? I can even switch, if I click on this little square, to what's called architecture look, or like bird's eye view. And let me even switch to this. If this is the camera, the launcher is just a little in front of it and a little above it, so I will see like the back of the bullet kind of above me, which is exactly what I want. Next, as a child of launcher, we're going to create an empty game object. We're going to call it a bullet container. So it's an empty game object and its child is an empty game object. And it's going to be called bullet container. And again, the spelling not really important as long as we know what it is. And of course, I'm going to make sure it's reset. Reset transform. So launcher, and as a child, bullet container. With or without, space, doesn't matter. And then, like a grandchild, as a child of bullet container, we're going to create a capsule, and its name is going to be bullet viz, the visible part of the bullet. 3D object, capsule. And you see, it's like, whoa, it's not even close. Its name is going to be bullet viz. And we're going to start giving it the right parameters. Bullet viz is going to be everything reset, except its scale is going to be 0.27 on all three axes, and its rotation x is going to be 90. And look at what this is going to do to it. If I keep it everything, default, except I'm going to lock, so everything I do to one scale is going to do to the other, 0.27, and you see how it becomes much smaller, and then giving it the 90-degree rotation. Now the bullet, I'm kind of looking at the back of the bomb, and it's facing away from us. The one more important thing to do is we don't want it to have just a capsule. So we're going to add two bullet viz. So this is already like not even a grandchild, it's like a grand-grandchild. We're going to add two children to it called Fin1 and Fin2. Those are going to be cubes. So bullet viz, right-click, create 3D object cube. At first it's going to look weird. It's going to be called Fin1. Later on I'll duplicate it to Fin2. So you can create Fin1 and later on duplicate Fin2, as long as they end up with these parameters. Scale 1.5, 0.11, and it remains with a 0.27. So 1.5, a little taller, or wider actually, and 0.11 a little thinner, like this, and 0.27 on the Z. That's its like thickness. And you see how it becomes like, a fin. And also as far as its position, see how, if I get closer to it, double clicking on the icon zooms you in. See how it's like in the middle, and I want to move it a little back. So it looks like an old fashioned, like, World War II, bomb or something like that. We can always replace it later on with something, with a different look. So it's Z. Actually, it stays. Yeah, that's fine. I can always move it back a little more. Am I missing any of the? No. Okay, good. It can stay in the middle. I can always move it back a little bit if I want to. This is just for looks. Oh, sorry. It's going to be. Oh, it's actually going to be its Y because we rotated it. That's why. As long as, what, if the instructions say 0, we're going to keep it 0. And fin 2 is going to be a duplicate of it, only rotated 90 degrees Y, which is going to give it this. See how it's like, one of them, if I hold Option and rotate, see how it's got like those, looks like a, torpedo, something like that. If you feel like taking both fin 1 and fin 2 and moving them back a little bit so it looks, more pronounced on the back, go ahead and do that, like -3 or something like that. But that's up to you. As long as when I look at the bullet viz from all directions, it looks something like this, but most importantly, it looks this way in the game window. And the bullet viz itself is 0, 0, 0, which means it has the same coordinates as the bullet container, 0, 0, 0, which inherits its coordinates from the launcher. So it's exactly in the launcher, 1.7, negative. So this is why it was so important to give the launcher the right numbers, because its child is going to inherit that, and its grandchild, and within it, it's 2 fins. And then let's make it look a little more like a bomb. It even tells you what your hierarchy should be looking like right now. See? This, and my hierarchy looks exactly like it. Good. And what the game window should be looking like. And we're going to add, before we give it like the material, we're going to give it 2 components. We're going to add to bullet container, the whole, like, the parent of the bullet, a script called trigger on key, capital T, capital O, capital K. Again, bullet container, not bullet viz, not launcher, bullet container. Add component, script, name of the script, trigger on key, create and add, and it's going to be added to the rest of my scripts. Now, when we create scripts this way, and we will talk about it in class, it's basically just a shell of a script. It doesn't really do anything, but it's ready to, it's ready to accept more code. Save. So now it has a script. And the other thing we're going to add to it, which is kind of like its engine, which is going to propel it forward, is something called constant force, which is a component. It's also, when we add constant force, it also automatically adds another component called rigid body. They usually appear one above each other. And we're going to give them their the parameters that are in the screenshot. So again, it's bullet container, not bullet viz. And add component. As soon as I type CO, I can see constant force. Not constant force 2D, but just constant force. And you see how it added the rigid body and the constant force. I can tell you that we're going to keep all the defaults of rigid body except for one thing, use gravity. Because if I keep use gravity on, I want to show you what will happen. It'll just fall to the floor. As soon as I play, boop, I don't want that. I want it to hang in the air and be ready to be launched, as if it's, attached in the air somehow. Now, as far as the constant force itself, we're going to give it two numbers that change, that are different from 0. We're going to give it relative force 10 and relative torque 10. In class, we're going to discuss why. The relative force 10, Z, is going to propel it forward. Z is, forward back. And the torque is going to spin it. Why relative? Because, as I will show you in class, if we do the absolute, it means that even if we rotate the bullet, let's say towards the corner, it's still going to fly straight. I want it to fly relative to its own rotation. So relative to its own rotation, it's going to have, like its own forward. Now, right now, if I play, it should fly forward and spin. And of course get stuck in the wall because nothing tells it, it's basically drilling in the wall. Let me look at it from above and you'll see. Kind of funny. See how it's like trying to drill its way into the wall and never stops. Now, let me stop, of course. So this is why we're going to uncheck constant force. That way it's waiting for user interaction, like a keyboard stroke, to fire it, and that's going to enable the constant force and fly forward. Like if I play right now with constant force disabled, it just hangs in the air. And then simulating, let's say, if the user will press the right key, as we will script later on, fire, and constant force propels it forward. Of course, don't ever forget to stop if you played, because all the edits you do while it's playing will not be saved. So if you want to edit something that you can save, make sure it's stopped. You know it's stopped if you see the play button. By the way, pause is not the same as stop. Pause just means play frozen, so it's still play. Next, step 26 was not to forget to disable the constant force, and that gravity is unchecked on the rigid body, which we've done already. The inspector for the bullet container should have all of these components, so we're just checking. It should have transform, the script, trigger on key, the rigid body, the constant force, and that's pretty much it. So let's check. Bullet container, yep, it has all of those things. And the constant force is ready with the right parameters, only disabled. Then it's time to finally give it, its look. So in the folder, My Materials, right-click, Create Material, Bullet Matte. I'm going to give that material to the Bullet Viz and its two children. Bullet Viz and to Fin 1 and to Fin 2. And it's just going to be, to make it look more metallic. So as the guide says, we're going to use diamond plate and diamond plate normal. I can either select one of those objects, scroll down and find its, material, albedo, diamond plate. Here it is. And normal. See how it changed all of them because they're all sharing the same material. The normal is going to be diamond plate normal. So it looks a little more, bumpy. And other parameters I'm going to change are going to be, it's going to be a little smooth. The normal is going to be a little higher value, and the tiling is going to be 2 by 2. But again, we can always play around with it, let's say, to taste. So smoothness is good, normal map, strength about 2, so it becomes, more pronounced. But more importantly, the tiling 2 by 2, so we can see more of those diamond shapes. I like the way my bullet looks. We can always make it look a little different later. Save. Great. I like it. Next, it tells you how the game window should look. Of course, the lighting might look different because we got, different like work light. And to test, just like we did, you should be able to see the bullet not moving. And if you enable the bullet's container constant force, it should fly forward. I'm going to test this again. Play. stuck in the air. Select bullet viz. Sorry, not bullet viz, but bullet container. And constant force, flies forward. Good. Not forget to stop. And we're going to go to the next step. If everything works, step number 30, bullet container should become a prefab by dragging it into the prefabs folder. And let's do that. Let's find our prefabs folder. We should have one prefab called wall, and now bullet container, not the launcher, not bullet viz, but bullet container, the parent of bullet viz, becomes a prefab. Why does it need to be a prefab? Are we going to have more than one bullet? Of course we are. Every time we shoot, it's going to generate another one. Basically, and that process is called instantiation. And now that we have a bullet container in the prefabs, we're going to delete. This was just like a place to construct it. But once it's constructed and it's in the prefabs, it's going to be right-click, deleted from the main scene. Because what's going to put a new bullet in the launcher? Scripting. So it's ready to be instantiated. We can always double click to open it to, change its parameters if we don't like it and so on, and go back to the main scene by clicking the back button, and we're back in the main scene. Let's see what the next step is. That's pretty much it. Save. Now that your bullet container is a prefab, we deleted it from this. Make sure all your materials are nicely organized in a folder called My Materials. Make sure all your prefabs, which is only 2 so far, wall and bullet container, in a folder called My Prefabs. Zip the entire project folder, just like we've done in other folders, and upload it to the submission box by the due date. And it's very important to do that before next class, because of course stage 2 will start from where stage 1 ended, and this is the end of stage 1.